So excited to get to share. I have not spoke on this stage, and since I guess it was New Year's Eve, so we're probably going to go ahead and open our Bibles, start in Leviticus, and we'll just see where we end up. Does that sound good? No, they told me short and sweet, so I was like, well, it's tough, but I will try. But I want to talk about something everybody struggles with. Now, some of you are going to be in denial whenever I say what it is, but by the end of this service, once you hear the title and you listen to the message, if you still believe that you don't fall under that category and you don't struggle with it, find me because I want to know your secret. But please put the title up. Drum roll, please. Okay. Experiencing some there it is. Overweight. Okay. And yes, dads, you were included. I know the dad bod may be a stylish thing nowadays, but it's still considered overweight, all right? I know this. You see, I still haven't lost the baby weight. But tonight, what I want to do is hopefully shed some light on living life overweight. And living life, and I'm going to compare it as we go through to physically overweight. But really what I want to touch on tonight is being spiritually overweight. And that song fits perfect, and this message, everything ties in. God is wonderful, and he works in the most mysterious ways, and it's just an honor to even get to be up here and share his word. But what we have to do is start looking at ourselves as what God looks at us. And we have to start telling ourselves, first off, what God says to us. And just like I said when I first opened up, that God says that you are forgiven. He says you are enough. He says you're worthy. He says you're his child. And so to even to get started with your weight problem, you're going to have to recognize the fact that you are. Because I know that you want to tell yourself you're not. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not skinny enough. I can't speak well enough. I mean, if I can go out and teach the word of God to people, anybody can, okay? Because I was pretty rough around the edges. But we have to start looking at ourselves like God looks at us. We have to see ourselves. When you look in the mirror, you need to be looking at what God sees, not what you see. And if you are breathing and alive today, you have a purpose. You have a reason. There is a race that every one of us is running. We're all in our own lanes, and sometimes it's hard to try to get in somebody else's lane and do what they're doing, and it may look nice, but God specifically has a race for you. And I want to read you Hebrews 12:1. It says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of the faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us." So if any of you guys ran a race, anybody at all? There you go. See, yeah, we can interact. This is not the Baptist church, okay? I grew up Baptist, so I can say that. I am now a Baptist-costal. But you can raise your hand. It'll be all good. Or if you haven't ran a race, have you done something that's equivalent to running a race? That would kind of compare. But the next question is, have you ever done it out of shape? Terrible. We're talking about camp, and he just said it's 2 weeks away, and I was thinking this year, I'm going to have to do a little exercise, drink a little more water. I have not done any of those things. And last year when I got back from camp, it took me a day and a half to even wake up. Okay, so I know about running a race being out of shape. But how do you expect, because we know we got a race to run, and God has given us this race and this purpose, but how do you expect to run that race out of shape? How do you expect to run that race overweight? It's not going to be near as efficient. It's not going to be near as fun. And most of the time, you're probably going to be almost saying bad words. Because when you get in that moment of being tired and beat down and you look up and you still have so far to go, which for us it's until eternity, until we are not here, our race. So we've got to be prepared for this race, and we have to be able to learn how to push through, learn how to continue pushing. And so I want to help maybe get you prepared for your race. I want to help get you where you are in better shape for your race. So my first point is get your head in the game. Before anything ever starts, or before we even get to the point of running in the race, you are going to have to get right here. Because if somebody says to me, looks like your pants are a little tight, bud, I'm going to take that and be like, man, yeah, I got to start drinking more water. I got to start, and I'm going to start saying these things like Matt just told me that Sunday that my pants were looking. I actually bought stretch pants and shirts because of it. But I started thinking, man, I probably need to lose a little bit of weight. But you know what? It's kind of like those New Year resolutions. By the end of January, February, you forgot the comment, and you're back to drinking just as much Dr. Pepper. You're back to doing just what you did, because what Matt said and what I have in mind are not the same thing. But if I get in my mind, not exactly what he said, because it was not nice, but if I get in my mind that, you know what, you might really need to, and I start thinking and I start praying and I start getting myself, and I get my mind in the place that I am ready to do it. I am ready to quit drinking Dr. Pepper. I'm ready to start doing whatever. That is your starting point. That is where you have decided it's time. But, and there's always a big but in life, physically and spiritually. But once you get your head right, and once you get your mind right, and you get ready to start this process, something's going to happen. And it happens every single time you try to do anything with your life out of the ordinary, and that is the opposition is going to come. So whenever you start telling people, let's talk about physical for a moment. When you tell people you got a gym membership, you're going to start going, and you're going to start drinking more water, you're going to start walking and eating right, and you went to the store and spent $3,000 on healthy food instead of $300, you're ready to go, people are going to be like, oh, I tried that and that is terrible. Or, ooh, you're not going to like that kind of food. That right there does this. Or there's going to be always some kind of, oh, yeah, you're going to pay $10 a month for Planet Fitness and just waste $10 a month. Like, might as well just drive down the road and throw 10 out a month, And that's what they're going to say, and they're going to start pushing. But even worse than that, I hate to tell you, but whenever you start to make your mind up and you've got it set and you start to speak those things spiritually, the opposition is going to come. Because this world is going to fight and claw and scratch against anything that's going to go for the kingdom mind. And the kingdom mind is way different than the world mind. The kingdom view is different than the world view. And so the world is going to push against you. The world is going to fight, and he's going to place people in your life that are going to be the opposition. And not personally, but they are going to be there for that reason. They are going to push against you and say, yeah, but you can't do this. Or, yeah, but aren't you doing just fine like you are? I mean, you're still living. You're still having a good time, and you don't have to wake up early on Sunday. And they're going to push and scratch. But you, it's no one else. And that's one of the main things in this point is you have to decide. You have to make that choice, and you have to stand. So anything after that is an excuse because you have to do it. If you say, well, someone else did this, I'm still not you. There's no reason. There's no excuse. So here we are. We got our mind right. We know that we got to fight some opposition. We know that we got some things that are going to come our way that are not going to be too nice. But I want to read John 16:28 through 33. It said, and this is Jesus speaking, it said, yes, I came from the Father into the world, and now I will leave the world and return to the Father. And the disciples said, at last, you are speaking plainly and not figuratively. Now we understand that you know everything, and there is no need to question you. From this we believe that you came from God. Jesus asked, "Do you finally believe? But the time is coming, indeed, it's here now, when you will be scattered, each one going his own way, leaving me alone. Yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. I have told you all this so that you have peace in me here on earth, and will have many trials and sorrows. But take heart, because I have overcome the world." Hearing that, knowing that the opposition is coming, just know that you have a God that's standing right with you. He's going before you. He is beside you. He is behind you. He is inside you. And He is fighting every step of the way for you. So when you feel like that you've made a decision, but now you're all alone, I promise you, you have more pulling for you and pushing for you than you've ever had in your life. And at the end of that, it says, "For I have overcome the world." Well, I definitely want to trust and cast my worries and fears on somebody like that, because I can't even figure out my wife, much less overcome a world full of women. We can't even figure out where to go eat, okay? Like, that is the worst thing in marriage. Like, I almost want to just, if I could just quit eating, we'd be good. I think all of our fights would be over. But He has overcome the world, He says. And He says that He is not alone, and you are not alone. You may go your separate ways. You may feel like there's times that you're on your journey and you're in your race, and you feel like there's nobody around. I promise, if you just turn to God, you are fuller and got more friends and more power than you've ever had. But my second point, you are what you eat. And that is true. And for an example, diet. Whenever you start to get healthy, you got your mind right. We don't care what the haters are saying. Haters going to hate. Ain't is going to ain't. But Taylor Swift, that's in the Bible somewhere, I think. But it says you got a diet. So what you physically put into your body is going to affect physically how you feel, what you can do, and how far you can get on your race. It's the same spiritually. If you want to take care of the weight that you have and the weight that you're carrying in your life, then you are going to have to change your diet. You are going to have to read the Word of God, is what I'm saying. Because you can get your head right, you can get your heart right, you can do these things, but if you don't put that Word in, you have none of that Word to get out. And you're going to be walking, and you're going to say, all right, God, we got this. We're good. I'm going on the race. But when the opposition comes, one day it's going to be a little much, because you do not have that Word hidden in your heart. You do not have that rock to stand on. You do not have what you need to continue, so you're going to get knocked down. And you're going to feel lonely again. You're going to feel like, and you're going to go right back to the way you came, which is never what was intended. And it's like Murphy's Law of Physics, or whatever that thing is. It says, what goes up must come down. Well, I definitely believe what goes in must come out. I work in the oil field 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and just sitting there and, working with those people. Now, I will tell a good story, that rabbit trail, like we talked about. Sometimes I find rabbits. But anyways, we're at work, and I listen to Christian music on my shift, because it's my shift and I'm the boss. So I can listen to Christian music if I want. And so it's always playing. And I actually have guys that care nothing about Jesus, or even care about thinking about talking about it, that have requested songs from me. Hey, that song I heard the other day had these words. Will you play that for us today? We really like that. And so I promise you it works. But on the opposite side of that, sitting there at work, it does work against me as well, because I'm trying and I am alone. I literally work with no one that believes in God or cares about believing in God. My boss told me if I believe anything but myself, then I am stupid. And so I've got this opposition. I've got people that it's either every other word or every third word, I haven't counted yet, is a cuss word. I'll pay attention next time, we'll know for sure. But that language, and the vulgar talks that they have amongst each other and all that. I'm not partaking, but I am hearing. And the other day, I went to do something, or something happened, I don't remember, and I started to say something that I normally don't say. And it started almost ran out of me like old friends. And it was actually within the last week and a half, and it really got me thinking about this message. And, and I had been writing it down, and it was like, I never realized how much. Because, you think, oh, it's not a big deal, I don't pay attention to that. But I'm studying the Word of God for this. I study for the youth. I read my Bible. I come to church faithfully. But yet I almost said that word. And I was just sitting in the room. I just sit in the room with those people 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And that's how much of effect it has. I didn't physically choose to watch that or hear that. I didn't turn on the TV to that or turn the radio on to that. But I know people in your lives, you do. And I'm not calling anybody out because I do it. I don't listen to just Christian music. I don't watch just Pure Flix TV. But I can promise you, every time that you choose, if it's going to happen when you're not choosing to hear it, when you choose to hear it, it's going to keep seeping in and fighting against and coming against and pushing. And I promise you, the joy and the fulfillment and the peace that you will not have because of watching that, it's scary almost to think. And and that moment might be simple to some, like, oh, he almost said a cuss word, big deal. But to me, I'm doing everything in my life not to be that person. I'm not saying if you want to cuss and talk like that, that's fine. I just don't want to offend anybody and stumble them, because my worry is that what I do in my life, if it hinders someone from getting to God, then I've completely gone against everything that I stand for. And so in that little moment, that little time that I almost said those things, just think about that. Just stop for a moment and realize that that's not even what I was putting in, but so what you put in, you were definitely going to get out. Christian TV, Christian radio, and like I said, read your word. Listen to the Bible, because I can't imagine if I didn't even play the Christian music all day that I probably would have said more than just one of those words, or I almost said it, but I would have probably been saying a lot of those words by now, just because of sitting there thinking. I know the songs so much on my playlist that sometimes I'm not even actually active listening, but it's still there. God is still working through that. God is still moving through that. But the third point, there's only 6 though. No, I'm kidding. Third and final point, change won't happen unless you make it. So we've got our mind and our heart right, and we've changed our diet, and we feel like $1 million. But that too is not enough. So the next step is exercise. You're going to actually have to physically get out and do something if you want to attain your goal and be physically fit where you want to be and spiritually fit. So see, you're getting a 2 for 1, spiritual and physical. I'm telling you how to lose weight and get closer to Jesus. That's why I make the big bucks. But you're going to have to get out. So, something funny, someone asked the other day if I did crunches. And I was like, sure do. And they were like, really? I said, yeah. Hershey Crunch, Captain Crunch, and any other crunch I can find to put in my mouth. That was cheesy, but it's pretty good. And I want to tell you, preparing this message was hard, because I started looking, I couldn't think of a title for this, and I think God was telling me something, because I was like, I can't think of a title for the point number 3, but I don't want it to be just like exercise. It's not cool. And so I was like, come on now, you got to come up with something good. So, I came up with something, but it wasn't at no price. And I want you to tell you that Google is a hater. Whenever you Google exercise sayings, I got suck it up so one day you won't have to suck it in. There are only 2 options, make progress or make excuses. The pain you feel today is the strength you feel tomorrow. And then I found mine, the perfect one. I get enough exercise pushing my luck. And I'm sticking with that one. But no, on a serious note, the more I thought about those, I was kind of offended at first. And if the worship team wants to make their way back this way. But while I was thinking about those sayings, it really got me really thinking that how often do we miss out on our miracle and our blessing because we made an excuse or we used someone else as a scapegoat and excuse that you didn't do something. I hear it all the time, at work working with different guys, and I was like, hey, why didn't we get that job done? Oh, well, normally we use the impact, but we just had wrenches. And I'm like, so why didn't we get that job done? And that's how we do in life, is that we want to look at other people and what they have said, or we want to look at other people and see what they have done, and you want to use that as a tool and a crutch. But I promise you might think that it's doing you some good, but it's nothing but harm. And I promise you that you are making yourself miss out on your miracle, on your blessing, on your relationship with God, because communicating with God, it's just like any other relationship. If you don't communicate, it's going to fail. Relationships are built on communication. You have got to pray. You have got to read your word. You have got to fellowship with other believers that are like-minded and feel like and have the same goal that you do, because that's pouring into what you can eventually put out. But you got to get it in first. You've got to fill your heart full of God. Not God and then Netflix, and then God has to be full. And then all that other stuff, all those other relationships, all those other people, all those other things will fall into place. But God is first. So I think it's time in our walk with God that maybe we start to exercise a little bit. Exercise our right, especially in this country where we're free to do so. And that's simply attend church. I don't care if you don't feel like it. If you say there's a reason you're not going and you're physically capable to go, it's just an excuse. I hate to tell you. It's just an excuse. I can look for excuses to stay at this church and I can look for excuses to leave, but either way, it's my fault. It's my choice. Fellowship with other believers. You may not like their haircut. You may not come from the same background, but what's amazing about this set of believers is that you don't come from the same background, and the one thing that pulls you together is God. I wouldn't know half of you if it wasn't for this church, this God. And when you're out and about, take that church with you. Brother Wayne said it Sunday. Take it with you. You are the church. Be the church. What you feel here is what you need to be delivering to other people out there, because they're missing it. They don't see it. You feel it. You see it. You know it. Deliver it. Physically live out your walk with God. You can have it all you want in your heart. You can store up all the grain and corn and food you want, but eventually it's going to be freezer burnt, or it's going to get torn into by the mice, and it's going to dwindle, and it did no good. You wasted it. Don't waste it. You guys can reach people that I can't reach, and I can reach people that you can't reach, and I can do things that you probably can't. You can definitely do things that I can't, because there's not much besides talk that I'm good at. But it's time to start living it. It's time to start loving it and making it a priority. If you guys will stand as they start to sing. I want you guys to know something amazing about spiritual weight loss that is completely different about physical weight loss, is that, guess what? It's easy to get the weight off. 1 second, 1 moment with God. Just like that. All you have to do is say, God, I love you. God, I need you. God, I am so overweight. I am burdened. I am so heavy. Will you take it? Guess what? If that came from your heart, it's gone. 1 second, 1 moment right here, right where you sit, wherever. We don't ever close the service without giving a chance to come to the altar, but I want you to know that physical weight takes a while. You're going to have to do the diet. You're going to have to do the exercise, but God gives you so much grace that you don't have to do that right now. You can worry about that after. That's the steps to keep the weight off. This is the step that quick. He gave us that blessing to get rid of the weight. So it's about time that we as a church stand up and get overweight. Don't be overweight. Get overweight. Be done with the weight of sin. It wasn't intended for you to carry. That's what the cross was for. Don't take that blessing away. He gave us his only son so that we could walk with freedom. We could walk in this life and know that we have something to turn to always. So don't take that away. Give him your sins. Give him your past sins. Give him your heartbreak, your shame, your regret, your doubt. You are enough. You're good enough. I want to read it one more time. Hebrews 12:1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses of this life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance. You can't run with endurance whenever you're weighted down. The race that God has set before us. Don't try to run this race with all that weight. God, we thank you so much for your love, for your grace, for your mercy. We thank you so much, God, for giving us the opportunity to get rid of the weight instantaneously. God, and we also thank you for giving us a path and a way to keep the weight off of us, God.